So as you probably know, I've lived with type 1 diabetes since 2001. So I'm going to show you a day in my life when it comes to managing my diabetes. Today morning I had an insulin pump failure. So what that means is the Omnipod device that I use has detected that it's no longer delivering insulin. So it informs me, but my issue is I don't know how long it hasn't been delivering insulin for. So my sugar was about 9 this morning and it's currently 8.6. So I've injected myself with 2 units, 1 unit to correct the 9 and make it 6, and another unit to cover the morning coffee. And these are some of the challenges that you have with diabetes. So I only had a croissant and a coffee, which should be 5 units worth of insulin, and I gave myself 5 units of insulin this morning. So since the last video, I just realized, since the last video, I was going to have just a coffee, but I added a croissant to that. So I have to have 6 units in total, so I added 5 more units to that. And in theory, my sugar should be perfect now, but I've just checked my sugar levels and it is 15.5. Yeah, so I have no idea how that happened. I'm assuming maybe my background insulin was not working for a while, but those are the only things I can think of that could have possibly caused it. But what I'm going to do is give that some time for it to work. I give the insulin some time for it to work, but I added in a correction to that. So I added in a correction of 5 units. I'm taking that correction into account. So now I've got 8.4 units of insulin on board. And that's because I want to have lunch, but I can't have lunch because of my sugars. So I've given that extra insulin to cover my lunch. So when it does kick in, I've already got the insulin on board for my lunch. So now my sugar is 11.3 and it's going down. So the most important thing for me to do right now is plan for lunch, because what could happen is I have about 6 or 7 units of insulin on board and it will take only 2 units for me to go to 6, and then everything else I have to compensate for with my lunch. And then of course with lunch I could probably eat more than 5 units worth, and I have to compensate for that with more insulin. So I hope that entire process makes sense. For lunch I'm going to have this Y Food chocolate shake. It is something similar to Huel, so it has about 500 calories in a bottle. It's supposed to be like a meal in a bottle. I didn't plan on having this today. I wanted to order food, but if I order food, I will go low by the time the food comes here. So I'm going to resort to this, and I'm also going to have this high protein yogurt, which has no added sugar, so it only has 12 grams of carbohydrates. So between both of these, that should make up about 50 grams of carbohydrates, which covers the 50 grams that I've already injected for. Hopefully this should work well. Because there's a lot of fat in this, it can cause a bit of a spike in the sugar level, but that will eventually come down because it's just the heavy amount of fat in the meal that's causing your body to really struggle to bring to utilize the insulin correctly. I'm going to be having mac and cheese instead, and the reason for that is because my Y Food bottle was out of date. So I had to throw that away. It should be a similar amount of carbohydrates, similar amount of fats, much less protein. Although that shouldn't make a massive difference, it'll have still a similar effect on my body and my blood sugar levels, and obviously just not as healthy. After having a grilled chicken burger and fries for dinner, this is my sugar levels. This has been a difficult day in terms of my diabetes. I've given another correction because from looking at the trajectory of the blood glucose levels, it looks like what I've given for my dinner won't cover it. So I'm going to give it some time with the correction dose. A correction dose, if I haven't explained it properly before, is when essentially you calculate the amount of insulin you want to give for a meal. And if you feel like that amount has not provided sufficient insulin for the carbohydrates in that meal, you can give extra insulin as a correction dose to make up for that lack of insulin, essentially. So hopefully you found this video useful and insightful. I'm going to be making more of these types of videos, so it gives you an insight of what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes mellitus.